As I stand in the kitchen, the rich scent of pot roast fills the air, and my thoughts drift to the years devoted to raising David. Each memory is a delicate layer of vulnerability, wrapped around the steadfast pillar of love that is my son, a bittersweet blend of pride and sacrifice. I can vividly recall the early days where sacrifices were interwoven with sheer survival. Long nights spent working double shifts, I would rush home, my tired hands juggling the demands of dinner prep, while a toddler raced through the living room. His laughter, a sweet echo that still rings in my ears. Those sounds fuel my soul, a joyous reminder of the bond we shared. Our kitchen table was once cluttered with crayons, homework, and remnants of family dinners. I listened intently as David recounted his day, his eyes bright with excitement, painting vibrant stories of childhood adventures. I cherished those moments, feeling immense pride as I shaped his future. Amidst that pride, though, lies an undercurrent of sacrifice. I consciously shelved my dreams, tucking away art school applications into a drawer, their existence dimming like forgotten hopes. My aspirations faded as I committed to shaping my son's life. Fueled by love, I worked tirelessly to ensure he could pursue the education I never had, turning every paycheck into tuition payments and wearing sleepless nights like a badge of honor. I remember the graduation day as if it were yesterday, standing in the back of a crowded auditorium, heart swelling with conflicting emotions, joy, and a profound sense of something missing. I watched David stride across the stage, and amidst the applause that enveloped him, I felt a twinge of emptiness. Recognition for my sacrifices felt elusive, and I feared fading into the background of my own life. Once a cornerstone, I now felt like a shadow in my own home as David ventured into adulthood. Each family gathering morphed into an exercise in silence, laughter ringing hollow when I yearned for connection and acknowledgement. With Claire's arrival, this isolation deepened. Her confidence seemed to eclipse our shared history, turning my pride into a quiet yearning for validation. I gripped the edge of the counter, the warmth of the pot roast against my palms grounding me. Each cherished memory weighs heavily, stirring a mix of nostalgia and frustration bubbling beneath the surface. I refuse to let them define my value. The love I poured into David deserves recognition, not overshadowing. As I glance around the kitchen filled with remnants of shared meals and cherished moments, I resolve to reclaim my place, not merely as David's mother, but as a woman remembered for her strength. The time is near to lift my voice back into the light, to remind this family of the labor of love that has built our bonds. The echoes of the past will no longer drown out my spirit. I will rise once again. My heart was light the day Claire first entered our lives, her presence brightening our family like sunlight flooding through a window. I welcomed her with open arms, thrilled to see David smile with such genuine affection. It was a warmth I had hoped for him, a joy radiating from his being that felt contagious as we all gathered for dinner. At first, Claire was charming, a whirlwind of laughter and energy. I remember the way she complimented my cooking, filling the room with a vibrant energy that was hard to resist. She seemed to appreciate the traditions I had built, the cherished recipes passed down from my own mother. Each time she praised my meals, I felt my heart swell with pride, reassured that the family ties were strong. But slowly, as the weeks turned into months, the joy began to carry a whisper of something darker. It started with small, seemingly innocent comments. "Oh, Margaret," she'd say with a teasing smile, "I'm sure your recipes are great for a grandmother's kitchen." It stung, but I brushed it off with a chuckle, convincing myself it was a playful jab. Yet, the more Claire ingrained herself into our family, the sharper her remarks became. During shared dinners, I often witnessed her subtle digs at my handiwork. "You know, David's had better meatloaf," she would say, tilting her head with mock contemplation, her smirk contagious enough that others around us might laugh while I sat frozen, a polite smile plastered on my face. It felt like being thrust into a cruel game where the stakes were my dignity and self-worth. I watched as her confidence illuminated every shared meal, leaving me shrouded in self-doubt. With every family gathering, I began to sense a tension building, a silent war igniting beneath the surface that I could not quite articulate. There was an invisible barrier formed with Claire at its helm, and it left me feeling like an intruder in my own home. Her controlling nature began to unravel slowly, yet inevitably, weaving through shared chores and family events. Remembering the time we tackled organizing a family Christmas party, I had meticulously planned the event, pouring myself into preparations. Excitement bubbled within me as I organized settings decorated with greenery and placed the plates just right. But when Claire entered the scene, she swiftly commandeered my efforts, overshadowing my contributions with her own flamboyant flourishes. "Let me handle the music," she had chirped, prancing over to the stereo, her fingers dancing over the buttons. It seemed innocent enough at first, but soon every choice she made felt like an erasure of my labor, a theft of my joy. I watched as the shimmering lights sparkled in her eyes, while the echoes of laughter they elicited filled the room, and I stood on the sidelines ceding my position. The uncomfortable tension between us revealed itself in cutting comparisons. It gnawed at the edges of my being, the way she condescendingly compared the way I folded table linens to her pristine technique. Hostile yet skillfully veiled, her jabs cut deeper with every backhanded remark. It gnawed at my resolve, leaving me questioning my worth in a space that had once felt like home. The walls of our family seemed to close in on me, and I could feel Claire drawing lines in the sand. The more I replayed those moments in my mind, the more the realization hit me like a cold wave crashing against the shore. I had welcomed a stranger who disguised herself as family, the embodiment of everything I feared over the years. I often glanced at David, longing for him to notice the shift, to call out his wife's subtle aggressions, but he remained blissfully unaware, caught up in the charm of his new life. I attempted to reach out to him, to draw his attention to the dissonance forming around us, but each conversation felt futile, laden with misunderstandings that left me feeling more isolated than before. I began to sense a painful fracture take hold of our relationship. How did this happen? I questioned myself late into the nights, once again swirling thoughts tumbling like leaves in an autumn breeze. My heart itched with frustration, yearning for recognition and appreciation, desperately wishing David could see me, the woman, the mother who had fought tirelessly for his success. Amidst these thoughts, I fixated on the question, where were the bonds of love I'd nurtured? I realized I must reclaim my place as an equal within this family dynamic, not merely a backdrop for its theatrical performances. Each day, Claire's demeanor eroded my confidence, and I felt myself shrinking into the background. Yet, deep inside, a flicker of defiance sparked. Memories of the sacrifices I had made came rushing in like a flood. All those years dedicated to nurturing David didn't warrant muteness in a home that was once filled with laughter and joy. I would not fade quietly. My strength lay in the love and dedication I brought to this family, and that, I resolved, would no longer be hidden or dismissed. It was time for me to stand tall, to confront the very source of my humiliation and reclaim my voice. As the days turned into weeks, I felt the heaviness of the turmoil inside me fermenting into determination. Claire's mockery, the suffocating silence hanging between David and me, my own sorrow, it all brewed in a tempest of resolve. I recognized that change was no longer an option. It was essential. One evening, as I stood at the kitchen sink scrubbing dishes, the rhythmic clinking of utensils filled the air, each sound echoing my internal conflict. I took a deep breath, allowing the heat of frustration to morph into clarity. I had spent years nurturing David, pouring love and sacrifice into his upbringing, and felt an undeniable urge to reclaim my place within the family, the position that had always been mine. With renewed purpose, I pulled out a notepad and began drafting a plan. Each line I wrote felt like a stepping stone toward reclaiming my dignity. I made a list of my contributions to this family, the countless meals, celebrations, memories woven into our lives, each one a testament to my love and dedication. I wouldn't allow Claire's dismissive jabs to overshadow the years I had poured into nurturing David, nor would I let those sacrifices be forgotten. Establishing boundaries formed the core of my strategy. There had been too many instances of Claire's cutting remarks that I had allowed to slip by, and I would no longer remain silent. I began to envision how I would confront her subtly yet assertively, reclaiming the space I occupied in my son's life. When the weekend approached, I invited David and Claire for dinner, a strategic gathering meant to create the perfect environment for my plan to unfold. I imagined a setting filled with warmth, laughter, and the aromas of cherished family recipes, evoking familiarity and love. As I prepped the meal, I poured all my heart into each dish, ensuring the table was set beautifully, adorned with the family china and flickering candles. The evening arrived with a buzz of excitement. David and Claire entered the house, their laughter mingling with the sense of my home. Yet, even amidst this joy, I felt the tension coiling in the air, a subtle reminder of the matters that lay unspoken. As we sat around the table, I tried to absorb the moments shared, each laugh illuminating the room while the shadows of discontent lingered. I savored the comfort of familiar faces while mentally preparing to address the unspoken chasm between us. At the right moment, I cleared my throat, commanding attention without raising my voice. "I've been thinking about our family and how things have changed since Claire became part of it," I said, my voice steady. David raised an eyebrow, intrigued, while Claire continued her veneer of calm. I pressed on, recounting how I felt diminished, my role as David's mother overshadowed by Claire's presence. My words flowed like a gentle river, coaxing the truth from behind walls that had formed. I want to ensure that we always remember our roots and the sacrifices that constructed our family. My chest tightened, yet I felt empowered as I shared my experiences of feeling sidelined, her dismissive remarks, the biting comparisons. As my words sank in, I noticed Claire's smile falter, though she attempted to maintain her composure. The atmosphere charged with electricity, an unsaid acknowledgement of the discomfort filling the space. Deep inside, I hoped that David would now fully grasp the nuances I had been enduring. I continued, articulating my need for mutual respect and affirming my presence within our family dynamic. I envisioned a future where I wouldn't only be seen as his mother, but as an equal partner in the family narrative, one who could rightfully take a place at the table without hesitation. With each passing moment, I felt more assured. The simmering tension became a catalyst for change, an opportunity for Claire to recognize the truths I had exposed. David's expression shifted from curiosity to contemplation, visibly grappling with the familial tension that had unfolded. "I believe we can build our family stronger," I concluded, locking eyes with both of them, especially David. but it has to be rooted in understanding and mutual respect. Silence enveloped us, heavy yet hopeful, as I watched the gears turning in David's mind. This wasn't merely an attempt to call out Claire. It was an invitation to reinvigorate our family bonds. The ball was now in their court. I held my breath, poised at a crossroads of uncertainty and resolve. Whatever came next, I was ready to take control and reclaim my voice. I wouldn't be overlooked any longer, and I felt confident that this structural foundation I aimed to build would return flavor to our shared meals and love to our gatherings once more. The days following our dinner felt both liberating and terrifying. I drifted through the house, a whirlwind of emotions, pride mixed with lingering doubt. I was proud of my confrontation, yet I sensed the ripples of tension not yet settled. David's absence in my defense lingered like an unasked question, weighing heavier each moment. My heart ached to comprehend his quietude, his failure to acknowledge Claire's pointed jabs, and now my own struggle to reclaim my place. I needed answers. I couldn't allow myself to retreat into inaction or silence. I embarked on a quest, an investigation into the dynamics of our family, an effort to understand why my voice had been stifled for too long. Every morning, as the sun spilled through the kitchen window, casting faint shadows on the table where we had created memories, I focused on the small details of my surroundings. I began making mental notes whenever David and Claire visited. Watching their interactions unveiled layers I had previously ignored. The first thing that struck me was the way she often interrupted him during conversations. A sentence would fly from his lips, only to tumble into the void of her insistence. "David, let me finish," she would say, her tone laced with an authority that stung as fiercely as the warm breeze brushing against the window screens. I paid attention as I could feel the coldness wrapping around my heart in those moments, the stark realization that she possessed a power that made David retreat into himself. His joys and opinions diminished. I noticed he would often nod along in silent agreement while she controlled the narrative, leaving me, as an observer, my contributions tucked away like family photos shoved behind cluttered drawers. Over lunch one afternoon, I placed my phone on the table while they chatted across from me. I scrolled through messages, searching for any glimpse of validation from David, a hint that he recognized my struggle, that he understood my place in his life. Instead, Claire's name popped up frequently. "Can't wait to see you tonight," said one message. Another read, "You're the best, babe." Read after read, I felt a pang deep within me, a hollow thud of defeat. Supplies for a meal I had meticulously prepared for them met the stark reality of my marginalization. The electric connection between them shone bright, yet I could sense a shadow cast over it, one that obscured the depth of what our family could be. It left me feeling like an outsider in my own home. The investigations continued. Days unfurled into weeks, and I began to observe Claire's patterns. Her manipulation often veiled in light banter. Each remark, cloaked in laughter, held sharper edges than I had realized. The insidious nature of her tactics had woven itself so intricately into our family fabric that even David appeared oblivious. I felt like I was peeling back layers of neglect, scabs of years gone unnoticed, yearning for his acknowledgement. A turning point arrived when we attended a small family gathering hosted by one of Claire's relatives. The sun lit up the backyard, laughter danced in the air, but unease followed me, coiling around every interaction. I watched as Claire paraded around, her confidence shimmering in the afternoon light, while I stood alone, observing with a tight throat and burning ears. As I maneuvered through the throngs of relatives, I approached Claire's friend, Sophie, who observed her tendencies all too well. To my surprise, she met me with knowing eyes. "You're not imagining things," she whispered, leaning closer as we stood under a shady tree, away from the buzz of chatter. "Claire, she has a way, doesn't she? The way she can convey loving support, but it cuts deeper than that." Her words echoed in my mind, a balm for my uncertainties. We exchanged stories, my feeling of isolation mirrored in her observations. She provided insight into the ways Claire consistently undermined others, subtly framing her preferences as the final verdict. That conversation was illuminating. It confirmed my suspicions but also gave me a sense of camaraderie. I wasn't alone in this. It made me realize that I was not just reclaiming myself for me, but for all the women who had silently endured similar slights. Armed with newfound understanding, I began compiling evidence not just for my own clarity but for a potential confrontation. I filled notepads with observations from family events, notes from my conversations with Sophie, and instances of Claire's comments that pierced through my heart. Each page became a shield, one to prepare me for the upcoming storms I planned to face. Through this investigation, I also began practicing responses, scripting out scenarios in my mind. I imagined confronting Claire and presenting my observations, how she interrupted David, how her unspoken dominance over our family impacted our shared joys, how her presence haunted celebrations rather than cherishing. With each passing day, the pressure built, but I chose to let it fuel my newfound bravery. I could feel my heartbeat quicken at the thought of David finally standing beside me, confronting the imbalance in our family. I resolved to gather my evidence into a coherent narrative and share my discoveries with David during one of our quiet evenings, those rare opportunities when I could penetrate the confines of the noise and reach him, not through words thrown into the wind, but through a heartfelt expression of my discoveries. That quiet night arrived sooner than I had anticipated, the atmosphere simmering with the electric pulse of confession lingering in the air. As David settled into the couch, scrolling through his phone, I felt a certainty wash over me. This was my moment. I wouldn't hold back any longer. Taking a deep breath, I prepared to unfold the truths I'd gathered, seeking the light beyond the shadows that had loomed for far too long. I needed him to hear my voice, not just as his mother, but as a woman with strength, resilience, and the right to be seen and valued once more. As David continued to scroll through his phone, oblivious to the weight of my brewing emotions, time felt like it was moving in slow motion. My heart pounded against my ribcage, each beat a reminder of the importance of what I was about to share. I could hear the muffled sounds of the evening news in the background, a stark contrast to the tension coiling within me. I fought the urge to retreat back into silence. I was tired of being the overlooked matriarch. "David," I said, my voice steady but quieter than I intended. He glanced up, his brow furrowing in curiosity. "Can we talk for a minute?" He set his phone aside, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "Sure, Mom." "What's on your mind?" The simple question held the promise of so much more than just a passing inquiry. I took a deep breath, grounding myself as I gathered the words that had lingered in my mind like secrets waiting to be spoken. "I've been reflecting on our family dynamic, particularly how Claire fits into it," I started, choosing my words carefully. "I know it might feel uncomfortable to address this, but it's important to me that we have an open conversation about what I've been experiencing." David's eyes narrowed slightly, his expression shifting to one of caution. I continued, feeling emboldened by the sincerity radiating from me. "Over the past few months, I've felt increasingly sidelined in our family. I've watched how Claire often interrupts you, how she sometimes dismisses my joy and contributions. It feels like I'm losing my place. The voice that once resonated in our home feels muffled. Silence filled the air, wrapping around us like a thick blanket. David's face showed signs of introspection, and I could see him grappling with the truths spilling into the open. I held his gaze, watching as realization began to dawn in his eyes. "Mom, he began, but I pressed on, emboldened by the gravity of my words. "I've taken notes on moments that have hurt me," I admitted, pulling out the small notepad I had tucked into my pocket. "These aren't just random complaints. They're instances that made me question my value in this family." I handed the notepad to him, but I could already read the concern etched on his features. His brow furrowed deeper as he scanned the pages, his confusion heightening. "I didn't know it was this bad," he said quietly. "I thought you were happy. I thought we were all okay. I never noticed the way she acted." My heart tightened, a mixture of sadness and relief flooding me. "That's the thing, David. I've experienced some dismissive comments and interruptions for so long that I started to question whether I was imagining it. But it's real, and hiding behind a smile doesn't negate my feelings." David's expression morphed into genuine concern, a storm of emotions flashing across his face. "Mom, I don't want you to feel this way. You should never feel invisible to me." He leaned forward, urgency coloring his voice. "You're important to me." Quiet gratitude washed over me. Some part of me had feared he would dismiss my feelings. "I want you to really see me, David. I want you to feel the same warmth for both of us in this family. It's been like I'm fading into the background while Claire takes the spotlight." So, he absorbed my words, and I could tell he was trying to piece together the years of dynamics that had crystallized into this moment. "I can't promise everything will change overnight, but I want to work through this together." Encouraged, I leaned in closer, eager to outline my vision for restoring our familial connections while ensuring my presence was respected. "I want us to create an environment where we can share openly without fear of judgment or dismissal. A family that embraces each member's voice, everyone, Claire, you, and me." David nodded, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. "You're right. I've been so caught up in trying to keep the peace that I didn't see it. Let's discuss this with Claire." There it was, the moment of clarity I had yearned for, the recognition that I need not navigate this tumultuous terrain alone. David stood resolute, a silent commitment to seek understanding, to reassess our family dynamic. It was a glimmer of hope amidst the complexity. I had built up a wall in my heart, one that had protected me but also isolated me. "Thank you, David," I whispered, feeling lighter with each passing moment. "This means the world to me." His warmth radiated in the dim light of the room, and I realized I wasn't just reclaiming my voice for myself. I was doing it for all the women who felt silenced in their own families, those who had been overlooked and misunderstood. As David maintained eye contact, it felt like a pact had formed between us. We were acknowledging the underlying issues and now, together, could take the necessary steps toward healing. I outlined my desire to have a family meeting where we could talk openly, a safe space to voice feelings and expectations. "When we meet with Claire, you can let her know how her actions have affected us," I proposed. But I wanted to come from a place of love, a desire to strengthen our family ties rather than tear them apart. He nodded, his confirmation steadying my resolve. I felt affirmed by his presence, emboldened by the prospect of facing the challenge ahead. No longer would I allow fear or doubt to cast a shadow over our family. The significance of this moment settled heavily in the air, yet it felt light enough to breathe in, filled with possibility, hope radiating in gentle waves. I steeled myself, reminding myself of my mantra. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. I was determined to reclaim my dignity, to ensure that everyone, including Claire, understood my value in this family without hesitation. In that moment, I chose to hold on to the newfound strength, not just as my own, but for every woman who had stifled her voice beneath the weight of silence. We would navigate this together, redefining our narrative and reinforcing the bonds that anchored us all. The path wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to step forward, hand in hand with my son, ready to confront Claire and reshape our family for the better. The days leading up to our family meeting were a whirlwind of anticipation mixed with unease. My mind raced, replaying the nuances of our dynamic, the tensions I could no longer ignore. The scent of freshly baked bread drifted through the house on the day of our confrontation, a deceptive comfort amidst the storm brewing in my heart. I busied myself preparing the dining table, placing the knife and fork with the precision of someone laying the framework for change. Each item, a plate, a glass, a folded napkin, signified a new beginning, a family built on communication. When Claire arrived, her bright demeanor immediately filled the room. She approached David with a smile, completely unaware of the emotional currents swirling beneath the surface. "I brought dessert," she exclaimed cheerfully, presenting a box of pastries like an offering meant to brighten our gathering. "Thanks, Claire. They look amazing," David replied, glancing at her with excitement as he accepted her gift. My body tensed as I watched him turn, the casualness of the moment stark against the significance of our purpose. We settled around the table, the usual routine of family gatherings wrapped in comforting familiarity, yet I felt the tension like a taut string, ready to snap. I glanced at David, his expression hopeful but cautious, a silent promise that he would stand beside me. "Claire," I said, my voice steady yet fraught with nerved resolve, "can we talk about something important?" The contrast between my weighty tone and her carefree response was stark. "Of course, what's up?" she chirped, the innocent question holding a layer of challenge as her eyes darted briefly to me. "I'd like to discuss our family interactions. There are some things I believe we need to address," I declared, taking note of the way the atmosphere shifted. David's gaze sharpened, his brows furrowing with concern. "What do you mean?" I pressed forward, determined. "I feel that there are moments where my voice gets lost, like when you interrupt me during conversations, Claire. It makes me feel sidelined." The words flew from my lips with more weight than I had anticipated. Claire looked taken aback, her initial surprise quickly morphing into defensiveness. "I didn't mean to do that. I was just trying to keep things lively," she said, feigning confusion. "Keeping things lively shouldn't mean drowning others out," I countered, sensing a flicker of anxiety behind her surface confidence. Family gatherings should allow everyone to express themselves freely, not just a select few. David leaned into the conversation, his hand reaching for mine as a show of solidarity. "Mom's right. I didn't see how this was affecting you both." His voice held a steadying quality that brought me hope. Claire's smile faded further as the reality clicked with palpable tension in the air. "I didn't know you felt this way," she admitted, some vulnerability creeping into her tone. "But I'm just naturally expressive. I didn't mean to make anyone feel ignored." "It doesn't matter if it's unintentional," I explained. "What matters is how it impacts our family's bond. I want to feel valued, and we all should." The silence that followed was heavy, each breath we took laden with the significance of what was unfolding. I could see the gears shifting in Claire's mind, the brilliance of her expression dimming under the weight of understanding. It was a moment ripe for change, yet fragile enough to crumble at the slightest misstep. David cleared his throat, attempting to ease the tension. "Maybe we can all agree to be more mindful," he suggested, gazing fondly at both of us. Let's create some family rituals that encourage everyone to share equally. I felt a wave of relief wash over me at his suggestion. Yes, let's establish shared moments that encourage dialogue. Family meetings, perhaps. Let everyone have their voice heard. It could help reinforce our connection. Claire slowly nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. I can try to be more aware, she replied, her tone softer now. I just never thought about it that way. As we discussed new traditions to bridge this divide, I felt a flicker of hope. We began outlining a plan: family dinners where stories were shared, check-in moments where we each discussed our feelings, and even lighter activities to forge our bonds anew. David's presence provided a lighthouse in this fog, his unwavering support lighting the way through the emotional tension. The conversation began to shift from conflict to collaboration. Hopeful laughter punctuated our dialogue, weaving through our shared realizations. I could feel walls starting to crumble. Claire's defensive walls were coming down, brick by brick, as we ventured toward an understanding. By the end of our meeting, I could sense a new foundation being built among us, a tentative space where all three of us could sit together without fear of drowning out one another. And as we offered up promises to respect each individual's place in our family, the air filled with a lightness that washed over me. In that moment, I felt not just a personal victory, but something greater. A moment for all women who had ever felt invisible or unheard. As I reminded myself of my mantra, "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart," I realized that reclaiming my voice was not merely a matter of personal dignity, but a collective aspiration, one that would forever change the way we navigated this familiar landscape. We would rebuild this family together, engaging honestly and openly, ensuring that every voice would be celebrated. With newfound purpose, I knew this was just the beginning of a beautifully transformed dynamic. Ravens may find flight with the wind, but our family would soar together. The weeks that followed the family meeting were charged with anticipation. Conversations flowed more naturally, laughter filled the air, but the real test awaited. Claire's upcoming dinner invitation loomed like a storm cloud that could either rain down conflict or illuminate change. When the day arrived, David was buzzing with excitement while I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. As we stepped into Claire's home, the savory aroma of her cooking greeted us, momentarily calm. Yet, I braced myself for the underlying tensions that could still surface. "Thanks for coming, you two," Claire said, her cheer echoing through the entryway. But as she led us to the dining table, I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in her voice. There was a weight in the air, a familiar tension that hadn't completely dissipated. We sat down, and as the meal began, I sensed Claire slipping back into her old patterns. When David shared a childhood memory, she interjected with a story of her own, redirecting the conversation to fit her narrative. "Wait, Claire," I said, interrupting without thinking. "Can we try to let each other finish our thoughts?" She paused, fork frozen in mid-air, her eyes narrowing. I was just trying to keep things lively. "Do we really need to keep having this talk?" David took a deep breath, sensing the shift beneath the surface. "No, Claire, this is important. We agreed to try to communicate better," he reminded her, his tone firm yet empathetic. The air thickened, and I felt a familiar ball of anxiety forming in my throat. The possibility of confrontation loomed, but I knew it was necessary. It's not just about keeping things interesting. It's about making each of us feel valued in this family, I said calmly, hoping to counter the rising tide of defensiveness. Claire's cheeks flushed slightly, an expression of irritation mingled with vulnerability. "You always want to turn fun into a lesson, don't you?" she snapped, frustration spilling over. I stayed steady, feeling David's hand reach for mine beneath the table, an anchor in the storm that was brewing. It's not about the fun, it's about respect. We need everyone's voice to be heard. The silence that followed was heavy, simmering beneath layers of unspoken emotions. I could feel my heart racing, yet a part of me was resolute. Let's be honest, this pattern hasn't served us well in the past. We need to break it. I understand that, but this is how I connect. Claire's voice wavered as she leaned back in her chair, defensive but showing signs of cracking. Connecting shouldn't mean overshadowing others' moments, I replied. It's about creating space for all of us. I saw the internal struggle reflected in her eyes. With each word, it was as if I was peeling back the layers of her protective wall and revealing the hesitations beneath her bravado. This was my moment, the iris opening in the dawn. David interjected, his voice steady with encouragement. We can find a way to enjoy each other without feeling stifled. It's not easy, but we're all in this together. Let's discuss how we can shift our conversations to include everyone. Claire shifted her gaze from David to me, accepting the invitation to change. With a shaky breath, she finally responded, I just didn't know how much it affected you both. Can we start over? My heart lifted at her willingness to engage. Absolutely, I said, my voice a soft promise. We all have something to contribute, and it's worth it. The atmosphere transformed around us. I could feel the heaviness lift, replaced with the warmth of possibility. Laughter began to break the tension anew, this time interspersed with a renewed sense of understanding. As we continued talking, we crafted a new way of being, a promise to embrace each other's voices, weaving a tapestry of stories and experiences that included everyone equally. I felt a sense of joy flooding my chest, knowing we could effect change both for ourselves and for other women who felt unheard. In this moment of connection and vulnerability, I whispered my mantra to myself once again. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. It resonated even deeper, a reminder that reclaiming my voice would ripple outward, inspiring us all to nurture our family bonds. As we cleared the table together, laughter and warmth filling the space, I felt a sense of renewal. The confrontation had transformed into unity, breathing life into our collective dedication to embrace every member of our family. We were not merely navigating conflict, we were planting the seeds of understanding that would flourish in our shared journey forward.